Hello again, grad students. In this video, I'm going to talk about naming things. Now, you may not think this is a very exciting thing to talk about, but naming things truly is an art. I believe it's an art. I believe I'm very good at naming. People have told me, Jed, you're really good at naming things. So I'm going to share with you some of what I've learned about naming. And so I've gone to this file that I already may have showed you if you watched the video on making sure functions just do one thing. And what I've done here is I've put in some function names that didn't make the grade, and I'll explain why. So let's start off with derive session path. Okay, so first I have derive path. I'm giving it something called a spec name, sans proj, and I'm deriving the path. But if I see a function named derive path, it could mean any path. It's just not specific enough. It has to have enough context that you know what category of thing is in play. It's just too vague. The next one was just session path, kind of like statement that I'm going to make session path out of whatever the argument is. But I find it's much clearer if we always start out with a verb, because each of these functions is doing an action. So I like to put the action first. I think it's much clearer. Okay, this next one is derive path for session file. So this isn't wrong, but it's just unnecessarily long. The one that I chose, derive session path, uses the path term, short for path name. You could put derive session path name, but path is just kind of the accepted shorter version of path name. And path implies a file. So file and path are kind of redundant concepts. So this is the one that for me was the most concise. Okay, this next one is session killed. So this is a Boolean question, true, false. Always I prefix is underscore with these. It's just the clearest in my view. If I saw a session killed, plausibly, this function could be returning a session that was killed, not answering was a particular session killed. Slightly different thing could be interpreted there. So this just makes it nice and clear, the Boolean question format. And was session killed? I think it's pretty standard. Everybody uses the present tense for function name. Okay, set session path. So getters and setters. Set underscore or get underscore. It's a very accepted form. Here are my alternatives that didn't work for me. Set session path name. Path is shorter. It's not very confusing. Now, if you are writing code that involved concepts of paths that were different, like finding a path through a landscape, then you would want to put path name here to disambiguate. If there is no other concept of path in play, this is going to be pretty clear. And again, if you wanted to have set session path name, it's really, that is the most clear. And then if somebody added code later that did involve pathfinding, you wouldn't have to worry about confusion there. All right. Set path of session. It's just an extra word. You can leave out the of. Set session path. That's cleanest. Okay, next. Request job. Okay, in this context, a job is running a scene. But this particular piece of software was a distributed testing environment. that I wrote, kind of a test harness across multiple machines. And in that context of being a test runner, at that level of abstraction, the notion of a job, something to do, seemed clearer than requesting a scene to run. But, it wouldn't have been horrible, but that's the way I thought of it. And if I had just made it short, like request scene, that could mean a whole bunch of different things. So to make it short and fully explanatory, I use job, and then I just say request job. Okay, here's one that's interesting. Request scene to run from test register. So the class that we're in is something called a test register. But I never need to put the name of my class in the function that's inside that class. When this is called from client code, it's going to start on a test register instance dot and then function name. We never need to put the class name into the function that's inside of that class. So request job, that's the winner there. Okay, for this one, this function name was just getting a little bit long, and I saw an opportunity to change assignment to assign. Await job assigned from T-man seemed fine. Note scene state. Okay, the loser's here. Note scene status. That could be fine. It's just a little bit shorter to say state. Note scene processing state. Now, here, if I'm pulling into play the notion that the state is changing, we know there's processing going on. So the word processing is redundant to the notion of state. So we can just leave it out and say note scene state. And then the clunky note state the scene is in, or note state scene is in. That's just clunky because scene state is what we're trying to note. Just say it that quickly. All right. Those are some tips about function names.